You're watching a clip from the Club podcast.
Make sure you follow it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and give it a 5-star review.
So here you go. Here's a lovely clip from our podcast.
I'd like to talk about the Chelsea changes. There are 4 or 5 players linked to Saudi
Changes or
Arabia.
the cheating.
Cheating, yeah, that's the big question, lads. What do you think?
You should know all about it. I mean,
Cheating?
let us know.
I
Are
don't
they
know.
cheating?
I'm not sure about that, mate. I think we should talk about Chelsea's definite cheating, though. Strange, isn't it? There's kind of the allegations of Saudi investment in Chelsea. That's kind of come about in the last couple of days.
Yeah.
Whether we knew about it
But it was
previously or
being
not.
unveiled. Like people knew. The reason this is so difficult to kind of pin down is because, is it Clear Lake Capital?
Mm-hmm.
They're called. They have a huge part of the investment in Todd Bowley's Chelsea, right?
Yeah.
And they don't have to declare who their investors are to the Premier League or anything like that.
Yes.
And their investors, huge sums,
To the tune of 900 million
are the Saudis
for the Saudi.
that own Newcastle and own a number of the teams in the Saudi league, if not, is it all of them?
Well,
or
I
just
mean,
a
the
number?
PIF
All of them,
have been
I think.
nationalised, yeah. So the football teams there have been nationalised under the umbrella of the PIF. So yeah, it's very murky. I think how this came about, I think, is because, you know, when the sale happened, you know, when Todd Bowley's consortium took over Chelsea, I think there was an urgency from the country and from the government to make sure that the money buying Chelsea wasn't Russian. So, you know, when they do the fit and proper persons test,
Which,
they did that test and they made sure that the money was clean.
Yeah.
And by clean, I think at that point it was, is there any Russian money linked to this Chelsea bid? And there wasn't. You know, the money came from America, and they deduced that the money was therefore clean. What they didn't look into at the time, because at the time it wouldn't have been quite so important, is who funded the funders. And now, obviously, you've got PIF-owned Newcastle United. You've now got Chelsea, who are at least propped up by PIF money.
could obviously it's 900 million or a billion or whatever it is. Yeah, that's obviously not enough to own Chelsea, but that's you're owning about 25% there. If all of that was put into, because we don't know, was that billion put into Clear Lake with the intent of it being put into Chelsea? We don't know whether that's the case. But what you do know is they're now helping somebody that they have an investment in or a stake, or, you know, they can benefit from.
It's in the PIF's
helping.
interest to make sure that Chelsea are profitable.
Successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And profitable. And in fact, I would say not successful, Ad, to be honest. I don't think success in terms
financially.
of financial success. Yeah. I don't necessarily think the motivations of Todd Bowley are success the way that we quantify success, meaning silverware. I don't think that's at the top of the agenda.
Yeah, of course not.
But I think it's in their interest. And the other thing is, Chelsea are now, there seems to be a strong relationship between Chelsea and Saudi as a state. And a lot of errors have been made in the transfer market from Chelsea. A lot of poorly judged contracts, poorly judged signings have been made. And it's looking like we're now going to be able to offset some of these mistakes by selling them to Saudi. Look, you can, as a Chelsea fan, you can go, God, isn't this a touch? All those players.
That's what I was going to say.
No, like there are, mate. I got a text from my mate who, like, he got done in the group, but he went, "This is well handy. We're gonna sell. We're gonna get money for Koulibaly. We're gonna get money for Mendy. This is unreal." And like, luckily in the group, everyone went, "Mate, you joking?" Like,
No, but from a footballing perspective, it is massively. It's like, you know, you're playing Football Manager, suddenly you got all these funds.
no, but it's clearly,
But it's not.
But it's so.
Morally right.
I mean,
You'd rather not have any Saudi investment, or at least if it was Saudi investment, it isn't connected to the fact they also invest in
What happens
Newcastle and
when-
other clubs. But if it's there, it's a fact.
but
You're getting rid of Koulibaly. He's on 300 grand a
no,
week.
but
It's
Boo,
beautiful.
you know, sporting competition, like things that we love. You know, there was a time a couple of years ago when we were all rejoicing because we defeated the Super League, and part of the reason we were so keen to defeat the Super League was the beauty and integrity of the pyramid, right? So what makes the pyramid so successful is jeopardy. So if a club like Chelsea make errors in the transfer market, there needs to be penalties. And by penalties, I mean, you therefore can't sign players. If you make good signings and intelligent signings the way Brighton do or Brentford do, you get the reward of that. Chelsea have made a pig's ear of it. Cucurella, by the way, potentially going to Newcastle.
Yeah,
You
that's
see
what I was
that-
about
you
to say.
see-
Could there not, is there not a potential for this further down the line?
Well, I mean, Cucurella to
100 million
Newcastle.
for Cucurella.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, I'm making this up. I don't know if this is a thing. But what about this as an example, right? So Cucurella to Newcastle, that hugely helps Chelsea out, and it's Saudi manufactured. Then you get rid of Edouard Mendy, Hakim Ziyech, you get all these players off, you make money on them, you make profit. So the sporting pyramid, the sporting jeopardy, it's not fair, because Chelsea should be sort of penalised because they got it wrong, and they're not going to be. They're actually going to profit from mistake because of insider trading. But what about this as a scenario? Cucurella goes to Newcastle. Let's say that Chelsea want Neymar, but can't afford Neymar. Could Al Hilal sign Neymar,
And
loan him to Chelsea?
It's like what we did with Frank Lampard on some weird level. You know, he was owned by Newcastle, by New York
Just
City.
on a huge,
But the ironic thing is, we talk about City's cheating. I mean, I can never give you an account in the last 10 years, and we own a lot of football clubs in India, and in Spain, in France, Japan. I can't think of any situation where City have ever leveraged that in a massive financial way, like we're rumoured to be talking about with Chelsea. It's really interesting.
Do you
City have got a network? No, give me one example.
115 of them.
No, I'm okay. Take
No,
that.
there's 115 charges.
That's not related. Okay, they're related to different things.
115 examples.
I've made a point about the network of football clubs that we have, and that isn't
does that
related to
not-
the
like-
charges.
like
No,
Chelsea
but that
used to
could
do-
become a huge issue in the future, because you're seeing all these clubs
I get
buy
the charges.
clubs now,
We can
buy
talk about the
stakes.
charges anytime
No,
you
sorry,
want.
you're
but
on
that's
about
not
the
related.
clubs.
Yeah,
You're on
we
about
own
the clubs.
Girona, we own New York City FC.
But I think that could become an issue further down the line.
Maybe,
So does
but
it
we
not
haven't
happen?
leveraged it in a massive way.
You don't, as a rule, like Chelsea used to do this to the Dutch league. We used to give like a lot of players.
Tess Arnhem, wasn't it?
Yeah, a lot of players used to go over to Holland,
Yeah.
and it was kind of our
Feeder
fun.
clubs,
Do you not do that? Like you mentioned Girona there.
It's weird.
Do you not
They're
have
like
this
their own
pathway?
entities. You know, when you talked about Neymar maybe going to Saudi Arabia, then being loaned to Chelsea, and there's kind of rumours we've seen in the last couple of years, especially with Newcastle as well. City have never really done that, which is interesting. But
Yeah.
But there's the scope for it, I think, in the future.
definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely, yeah.
because also you're not breaking rules. Like, before anybody attacks me, I do not
They're
like this. I
loopholes.
do not support this. I think it's putrid, to be totally frank. But you can do it.
Yeah, it's a loophole.
Yeah, it's a loophole. You can do it. Of course, you can do it. So yeah, I mean, I don't really know
Feeder
what
clubs
this
are
means
obviously different
for
for
Chelsea.
loaning players. and
Yeah,
doing things. like
I
that.
don't really know what this means for Chelsea going forward, but it feels incredibly disjointed, because effectively
But
what we're
does it
doing
not
is,
mean nothing? Have we not seen evidence from the Premier League? They're not going to do anything.
but it means something to the way that the clubs run. Like, for
No,
example,
yeah, it means something to you, and it means something to.
but it means
people,
something to the
we can
fans.
discuss it.
So look, for example, say Chelsea are going to sell the likes of Ruben. Pardon?
So the Premier League ain't going to do nothing.
No,
That's
the
my
Premier
point.
League won't. The Premier League might not. But what it means, if you think about what Chelsea fans broadly want and identify with, players like Ruben Loftus-Cheek, players like Reece James, players like Mason Mount, effectively what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of Loftus-Cheek, we're going to get rid of Mason Mount, we're going to get rid of pretty much anyone that came through the youth system who we can get rid of, because when you sell them, you make 100% of that fee
Yeah,
or profit, in order to make sure that we can pay Koulibaly's wages.
And Chelsea have got a great academy as well.
A great academy
Amazing
that
academy,
produces a lot of. I mean, there was a time when there was a time when Jody Morris was manager, won 3 Champions Leagues in a row, and that it was like Tammy Abraham and that crew. But look, I don't like the way the club's being run. I don't like the direction the club is going in. I'm finding it all so painful, so much so that apart from this, all I really want to do is just watch cricket. You know, I just think I'm finding the money, I'm finding the conversations around football. Like, you know, when we talk about
Fair
football at the
cricket have
moment,
these issues as well. With like,
Do they?
fine,
but
money and that, but
not when I'm watching the Ashes.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah,
then.
not international
Basically, all
cricket.
I really want to do is end up like going to the Oval and drinking loads of gin and
Yeah.
tonic and like forgetting all this, because it's impossible. And this is where football is really losing itself. And the road that we're on is so slippery. It's impossible for us three, and us three are very good examples of this, to sit down and have a conversation about football. What we want to talk about is the brilliance of Jack Grealish, or the hilarity of Wouty Weghorst, or the sort of crazy decisions that Chelsea made. Have football chat, right? And what we're going to actually have to talk about you're going to talk about maybe 115 charges. You're maybe going to talk about human rights records in Qatar. I'm going to talk about leveraging money. And you think, what is going on?
Yeah, what world are we living in?
What is going on? Why can't we talk about Jack Grealish being a wicked footballer?
I am going to do that, and I'm not going to talk about 115 charges ever on this channel from now on. So,
no, but do you know what I mean? Like, it has gone wrong, hasn't it? Like, realistically, you are going to have to defend that, and Adam's going to have to start talking about Qatar.
Remember when we used to go, transfer fees and that? We used to think transfer fees was the thing that was going to just be out of it. Now it's like who your club's owned by. Soon it could be a case that Manchester United, Manchester City, Newcastle, their owners are involved in some mad geopolitical...
I mean, they are now.
Yeah.
But you know,
they are now.
So they're battling there and here.
The other thing is, I think
But I meant on a level
impossible.
where clubs are getting told, like with Russia and that, you're getting told United need to be sold.
I think it's also getting to the stage where it's impossible to win anything unless you are state-backed, which creates a situation where a lot of fans are going to want state ownership. Because Manchester City are in my opinion, the greatest team ever assembled. They are that because they are backed by a state. You look at Real Madrid have been the best for a long time. They're not state-backed,
They were
sort of
they were helped by the
But do you know what
Spanish
they did with the
government
train? Yeah, the King's Club.
Yeah.
You know what they did with the training ground when they sold it back, and you just think, okay, that is linked to the success of the team. Manchester United, I think, if this Qatar takeover happens, I believe that Manchester United will become like City are now, and they will be brilliant. Newcastle United, who knows? Chelsea have now got this sort of link to South, so who knows?
Yeah.
And you just think,
in there.
this is just
1,000,000%.
unless you are state-backed.
Yeah.
Like, it must be so it just must be so disheartening. You know, if you support Hartlepool, you must just be looking at it thinking,
I think they're the ones having fun.
they're having
they
fun.
are, yes, mate. It is.
But they can't win.
It is. Yeah, but they haven't been able to for 10,
winning
15
for them
years
is
anyway. I
different.
think it
No,
changed
but
with
the
Chelsea a
hope
little
of
bit.
winning
I think
for them is
Blackburn
different.
in the 90s.
No, but the hope of winning. The hope of winning. Like,
Yeah.
You ain't hoping to win the FA Cup anymore.
QPR won the League Cup, right? They won a League Cup. I think they played Coventry. They were 2-0 down, 3-2 up. That's what they love to sing, right? That happened and it was there and it was possible. They'll never do that again because Man City will win the League Cup every year.
Still, they've got Luton in the Premier League, Bournemouth. They could be playing against the Qatari Batman United. I mean,
yeah. Although Bournemouth, but you've used Bournemouth as an example, and I know that it was a flippant example, but they got Michael B. Jordan involved.
yeah.
You know what
It's
I mean?
ridiculous.
Like,
it's ridiculous.
you know.